Cadets mocked her at the gate. The scanner lit red, Earthborn, do not engage. Nova Station Prime was the pride of the Interstellar Coalition, a place where the brightest cadets from countless worlds trained to become the galaxy's future leaders and defenders. The station's metallic hull shimmered under distant sunlight, and the hum of energy fields and magnetic rails filled the air. Among the crowd of eager cadets, a young human named Lyra Kane stepped forward. Her boots clicked softly against the polished metal floor as she approached the main gate, her small duffel bag slung over her shoulder. She took a deep breath and tried to steady her racing heart. Lyra was from Earth, a planet many considered backward, slow, and primitive compared to the other worlds. Her species was underestimated, often dismissed as unremarkable in the eyes of advanced civilizations. The gate loomed ahead, a massive structure of silver panels and glowing conduits, with scanning devices hovering silently above. Lyra could feel the eyes of other cadets on her. Some stared openly, others whispered behind their hands. She caught fragments of their conversation. "Look at her, Earthborn." She clenched her fists, telling herself to stay calm. "I didn't come all this way to be intimidated," she thought. "I'm here to prove that Earthborns are more than what they believe." The security scanner hummed as she stepped forward. A translucent panel slid down from the gate's arch, encasing her in a faint blue light. Her eyes widened as the scanner ran a full analysis of her DNA, vital signs, and neural activity. Lyra had seen scanners before, but this one felt different, more thorough, almost judging. A sudden beep echoed, sharp and urgent. The light around her flickered and shifted to red. Bold letters appeared on the screen. "Earthborn, do not engage." Gasps echoed around her. The group of cadets who had mocked her froze. Some leaned closer to read the display, their expressions mixing confusion and fear. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. The warning wasn't a mistake. Someone or something had recognized something in her that no one had expected. The chief security officer, a tall alien with scaled skin and luminous eyes, stepped forward. "Cadet Kane," he said, his voice calm but authoritative. "Please follow me to secondary evaluation." Lyra nodded, swallowing her nerves. She moved as instructed, glancing back at the cadets. They no longer laughed. Their whispers had turned into quiet murmurs of disbelief. Lyra felt a strange mix of pride and anxiety. She had never been the center of attention like this, not for anything good. The secondary evaluation area was a stark room filled with monitors, instruments, and several specialists from different species. Lyra was guided to a platform, and sensors began scanning her once again. Data streams flashed across the monitors, her physiology, reflexes, neural patterns, even emotional responses. The specialists exchanged quiet comments, nodding to one another. "Fascinating," said one in a metallic voice, an AI interface integrated with a human researcher. "Her cognitive adaptability is far beyond expected levels. And these genetic markers," the researcher trailed off, shaking their head slightly. Another specialist, a four-armed alien with translucent skin, leaned closer. "This is consistent with early reports of Earthborn resilience," they said, "but I've never seen it manifest like this in a cadet of her age." Lyra tried to follow their words, but they sounded like a mixture of science and awe. She felt a spark of something unfamiliar, hope. Maybe being underestimated wasn't a weakness. Maybe it could become her strength. Meanwhile, outside, the cadets still gathered near the gate, trying to make sense of what had happened. Some of them were scared, others were curious. A few muttered about system errors, refusing to believe that a human could be truly special. One tall, arrogant cadet named Varek Trell muttered, "It's just a scanner glitch. She's nothing. Wait and see." Lyra, unaware of the whispers, was guided through a series of tests designed to measure her reflexes, decision-making, and problem-solving skills. Each test seemed simple at first, but quickly became unpredictable, throwing new challenges at her. She noticed that standard strategies didn't always work. She had to improvise, she had to think creatively, and somehow instinctively she found solutions that the simulation, or even the instructors, hadn't anticipated. Hours passed in a blur. Lyra's hands ached from constant motion, and her mind raced with calculations, assessments, and plans. But with every challenge, she felt a strange sense of excitement. The red warning from the scanner no longer intimidated her. It energized her. She was beginning to understand that this label, "Earthborn, do not engage," wasn't a curse. It was recognition. Finally, the tests ended. The specialists reviewed the results, their expressions a mixture of amazement and concern. The chief officer addressed her. "Cadet Kane, your performance is unusual," he said. "The Coalition has always underestimated Earthborn humans, but you may change that perspective entirely. Your adaptability and ingenuity are unlike anything we have cataloged." Lyra blinked, absorbing the words. She had trained her whole life to be seen as capable, but no one had ever acknowledged her potential in this way. The weight of expectations settled on her shoulders, heavy but not unwelcome. She knew the road ahead would be difficult. The other cadets would still doubt her. Some might even try to sabotage her. But she had a secret weapon, the very thing that had earned her the red warning, her human ingenuity, her Earthborn resilience. As she left the evaluation room, she passed by Varric Trell and his friends. Their faces were pale, their previous mockery replaced by unease. Lyra didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her calm confidence said more than words ever could. The scanner had recognized her potential, and now she carried that knowledge quietly but powerfully. Outside the station, the stars twinkled, endless and full of possibilities. Lyra stepped onto the observation deck, looking at the vast expanse of space. Somewhere out there, beyond the station and the familiar constellations of her home planet, challenges awaited. And she was ready, Earthborn, underestimated and misunderstood, but also capable of extraordinary things. A quiet voice in the back of her mind whispered, "They'll see soon enough. They don't know what Earthborns can do." And for the first time in her life, Lyra Kane smiled, not out of relief but out of anticipation. The journey had only just begun, and she was ready to prove that even the smallest, seemingly ordinary humans could change the fate of worlds. Lyra Kane walked down the long corridor of Nova Station Prime, her footsteps echoing against the metallic walls. The corridor led to the Advanced Evaluation Wing, a place reserved for cadets who showed unusual potential or unusual danger. Today, Lyra wasn't just a cadet. She was the subject of scrutiny, observation, and analysis. The room she entered was larger than she expected, filled with tall monitors, data panels, and scanners that moved silently along rails above her head. Specialists from multiple species stood behind consoles, murmuring to one another in low voices. Some wore holographic displays over their eyes, scanning data streams that flickered faster than the human eye could follow. A voice called her forward. "Cadet Kane, please step onto the platform." Lyra hesitated for a moment, but then did as instructed. The platform lifted slightly, centering her in the room. Sensors glowed softly around her as they activated. Data streamed rapidly across the monitors. Her heartbeat, neural responses, genetic markers, reflex times, cognitive calculations. "This is fascinating," said a voice from behind a holographic screen. It belonged to Dr. Rillith, a multi-armed alien scientist whose eyes glowed faintly purple. "I have never observed such adaptability in a cadet of this age, especially from an Earthborn." Lyra swallowed hard. She had expected doubt, perhaps even derision, but not fascination. Not this kind of awe. Dr. Rillith continued, "Your problem-solving is not just instinctive, it shows creativity. You improvise solutions where others rely on strict patterns. It's unpredictable." Another voice, metallic and precise, joined in. "Cadet Kane, your neural response times are above average, but more importantly, your synaptic flexibility is remarkable. You can handle variables that would confuse most cadets 10 times your age." Lyra blinked, trying to process the praise. Her heart thumped in her chest, not out of fear but anticipation. Maybe Earthborns aren't as weak as everyone thinks, she thought. Maybe we just haven't had the chance to prove ourselves. The specialists continued their evaluation, presenting her with challenges designed to measure her adaptability. One test involved a holographic maze that constantly changed layout. She had to reach the exit while avoiding obstacles that appeared without warning. At first, the holographic walls seemed disorienting. Each time she thought she had a path, it shifted. But Lyra's mind worked differently. She noticed patterns in the chaos, small repetitions that the system assumed were random. Using these patterns, she predicted changes before they happened, moving gracefully through the shifting maze. The monitors displayed her progress. Dr. Rillith's eyes widened. "Remarkable! She's not just surviving the test, she's learning faster than the system can adapt." Her thought process is unique. Next came a multi-species communication test. Lyra was presented with strange symbols, colors, and sounds representing concepts from alien civilizations she had never encountered. She had to translate them into actionable information. Most cadets would have struggled for hours. Lyra, however, relied on intuition, pattern recognition, and careful observation. Slowly, she decoded the symbols with accuracy that surprised even the AI evaluating her performance. Her intuition is as strong as her analytical skills, noted the metallic voice. Most cadets require training over years to achieve this. She has mastered it instinctively. Lyra felt a small thrill. For the first time, her abilities were not seen as insufficient. They were respected, but the evaluation was not over. Dr. Rillith gestured and the platform shifted to a new chamber, a combat simulation room. Holographic drones appeared, moving quickly, attacking from unexpected angles. The other cadets had always relied on brute strength, speed, or advanced technology. Lyra had none of these advantages. She had only herself, her mind, and her Earthborn ingenuity. The drones attacked relentlessly. Lyra ducked, twisted, and dodged. She observed their movement patterns, calculated angles, and anticipated their strategies. Then, using small objects in the room, panels, wires, and even shadows, she created barriers, distractions, and traps. The drones malfunctioned, their AI unable to respond to her unconventional tactics. "Her tactics are primitive yet effective," muttered one of the specialists. "Earthborn humans have always been underestimated, perhaps intentionally so." Lyra paused to catch her breath, her body tense, her mind racing. She realized that her strength was not in matching the drone's speed or firepower, but in thinking differently. The Coalition had trained cadets to follow protocols, but she had learned to break them, adapt, and improvise. Hours passed, and the evaluation intensified. Lyra's mental and physical limits were pushed further than ever before. Yet with each challenge, she grew more confident. She was learning not just how to survive, but how to excel in a system that was designed to overlook her potential. Outside the evaluation chamber, the other cadets whispered among themselves. Some were curious, others dismissive, but a few watched with unease. News of Lyra Kane's performance spread quickly, carried by AI monitors and gossiping cadets alike. "Did you see what the scanner did to her?" one whispered. "It lit red, do not engage. Why?" Varek Trell, the tall, arrogant cadet from before, sneered. "It's probably a glitch," he said, trying to convince himself as much as others. But even he couldn't ignore the growing sense of unease in the air. The Earthborn girl, who had arrived timid and underestimated, was proving that she could outperform even the most experienced cadets. Lyra, unaware of the whispers, was taken to a quieter room for the final stage of evaluation, a mental resilience test. She was placed in a simulated environment designed to challenge her focus, patience, and problem-solving under stress. The simulation recreated extreme conditions: zero gravity, sudden malfunctions, and unpredictable threats. Many cadets had failed this test, overwhelmed by fear or frustration. Lyra took a deep breath and centered herself. She focused on the task at hand, ignoring the distractions. Her mind worked quickly, analyzing every detail, testing multiple solutions simultaneously, and adapting in real time. The simulation threw curve after curve at her, but she remained calm, collected, and inventive. The monitors showed the specialist's reactions. "She's extraordinary," Dr. Rillith said softly. "Her resilience is unmatched, and her creativity, it's beyond any cadet we've trained before." Lyra completed the final test successfully. The platform descended and the sensors powered down. She was exhausted, but a smile crossed her face. For the first time in her life, she felt recognized, not just for being capable, but for being exceptional. As she left the evaluation wing, the chief officer approached. "Cadet Kane, your performance today has rewritten expectations. Earthborn humans are often underestimated, but you have shown potential that cannot be ignored. You may be our greatest wildcard." Lyra nodded, humbled yet proud. She realized that being underestimated was not a weakness, it was an advantage. She could surprise people, she could lead, she could excel where others thought she would fail. That night she returned to her quarters, staring out at the infinite stars beyond the station. She thought of Earth, her home, a small blue planet that many considered insignificant. Yet she now understood that it was not the size of the world that mattered, but the strength, creativity, and resilience of those who came from it. A quiet determination settled over her. They don't see what Earthborn humans can do, yet, she thought, but they will. And for the first time, Lyra Kane felt not just ready to survive, but ready to thrive in a universe that had underestimated her kind for far too long. The sun cast a pale glow over Nova Station Prime, filtering through the vast observation windows that overlooked the endless black of space. Inside, the cadets gathered in the central training arena, a vast chamber designed to mimic unpredictable combat conditions. Holographic projections of terrain, obstacles, and enemy units could change at a moment's notice, testing reflexes, intelligence, and strategy. Lyra Kane stood among the cadets, her Earthborn heart beating steadily. She had passed the evaluation wings tests, and now she faced the intergalactic combat simulation, a trial that would measure the skills, creativity, and composure of every cadet in real battle conditions. Or so they thought. Whispers circulated among the group. Some cadets looked at her with doubt, others with curiosity, but most had not yet decided whether to mock her or ignore her entirely. "Don't expect to keep up, Earthborn," sneered Varric Trell, stepping closer with a confident smirk. "This isn't your planet. This is real combat." Lyra met his gaze calmly. "We'll see," she said quietly, almost to herself. The instructors, a mix of alien species and human veterans, stepped forward. "Welcome, cadets," one announced. "Today's trial will test your adaptability, teamwork, and ingenuity. Remember, the simulation changes constantly. Only those who can think beyond standard protocol will succeed. You may begin." The arena shifted instantly. Terrain rose and fell, creating valleys, cliffs, and obstacles. Holographic enemy units appeared, moving with strange, unpredictable patterns. Most cadets immediately activated their standard combat modules, suits that provided enhanced strength, shields, and weaponry. Lyra had none of the most advanced gear. She had only her training, her wits, and her Earthborn intuition. The first wave of enemies approached. Cadets rushed forward, attacking predictably. Many fell into traps that the simulation had set, failing because they followed patterns too rigidly. Lyra, however, paused. She observed the drones carefully, noticing slight irregularities in their movement. One drone's trajectory overlapped with another in a pattern that repeated subtly. She adjusted her approach. Instead of confronting the drones head-on, she used the environment to her advantage, ducking behind a projection, luring a drone into a collapsing holographic wall, and using its own momentum to disable it. The sensors on the arena flashed briefly, signaling unexpected success. Varric noticed and frowned. "How is she doing that?" he muttered. Lyra moved through the shifting battlefield, constantly analyzing, adapting, and improvising. A group of cadets became trapped in a simulated canyon. Following instinct and observation, Lyra identified a weak point in the terrain. She guided them to safety using a combination of quick thinking and simple tools within the simulation, planks, wires, and projections manipulated with precise timing. Some cadets began to take note. They whispered among themselves, unsure whether to admire her or resent her. One alien cadet, tall and gray-skinned, muttered, "She's not just surviving, she's outperforming us all." The simulation intensified. Environmental hazards appeared. Sudden storms, collapsing cliffs, and unexpected enemy ambushes. Most cadets panicked, relying on their modules or brute force. Lyra, however, remained calm. She remembered the lessons from the evaluation wing: adapt, improvise, and think beyond expectations. Using a combination of clever diversions and misdirection, she turned the enemy's strength against them. A drone squadron, faster and stronger than her, became entangled in their own formation after she triggered a holographic barrier. A collapsing wall meant to block her path became a weapon when she lured enemies into it at the right moment. The chief instructor observed from a balcony above. "Remarkable," he murmured to a colleague. "She's doing what no cadet has done in years. Earthborn or not, she's exceeding expectations." Midway through the trial, a new challenge appeared, a puzzle-based objective. Cadets were required to activate a series of control nodes scattered across the terrain while avoiding enemy units. Most cadets rushed recklessly, falling into traps. Lyra approached differently. She analyzed the layout, identified the fastest paths, and noted the patrol patterns of enemy units. Her mind worked quickly, calculating probabilities and timing. She moved with precision, activating nodes efficiently while neutralizing threats with minimal effort. When a drone attempted to flank her, She used a fallen holographic panel to create a temporary shield and redirected it into another unit. Her Earthborn ingenuity shone through, combining simplicity with effectiveness. Each movement was calculated yet fluid, improvising constantly as the simulation adapted to her actions. The other cadets began to notice the unusual outcomes: traps failing, drones disabled in ways that shouldn't have been possible, objectives completed faster than expected. Varric Trell's frustration grew. "It's impossible," he muttered under his breath. "She can't be this good." Lyra heard none of it. Her focus remained on the trial, moving steadily through the arena. She realized that her strength was not in outmatching the simulation's raw power, but in thinking differently, in seeing possibilities that others overlooked. As the final wave of enemies approached, the arena introduced a chaotic element. Shifting terrain combined with multiple simultaneous threats. Many cadets struggled, falling behind or panicking. Lyra's strategy adapted instantly. She used environmental features to separate enemies, created diversions to redirect attacks, and moved in unpredictable ways that the simulation could not anticipate. By the time the final signal rang, indicating the end of the trial, most cadets had only partially completed the objectives, some failing entirely. Lyra had completed every challenge flawlessly, using minimal energy and resources, often assisting others along the way. The arena fell silent for a moment, then erupted into murmurs. Instructors and cadets alike stared at her in disbelief. Dr. Rillith stepped forward. "Cadet Kane," she said, her voice full of admiration, "your performance is unprecedented. Your ability to adapt, improvise, and lead under pressure surpasses expectations. You have demonstrated that being underestimated can be an advantage when paired with ingenuity and courage." Lyra felt a mixture of pride and relief. She had faced her first real challenge among the cadets and had proven that Earthborn humans could stand toe-to-toe with the galaxy's best, not through brute force, but through intelligence, creativity, and resourcefulness. Even Varric Trell, despite his pride, could not deny what he had seen. His usual smirk was gone, replaced with a begrudging respect. Outside the arena, whispers of Lyra's performance spread quickly. Cadets who had mocked her earlier now watched with a mixture of fear, admiration, and curiosity. "Did you see her?" one asked. "She didn't just survive, she led, planned, and executed flawlessly." Lyra walked out of the arena, exhausted but exhilarated. She had not only survived the trial, she had excelled. For the first time, she felt that her Earthborn heritage was not a limitation, but a source of unexpected strength. That night in her quarters, she stared out at the distant stars, thinking of Earth and the lessons she had learned. Being underestimated was no longer a disadvantage. It was a tool, a way to surprise, to innovate, and to lead when others relied on routine and expectation. A quiet determination settled in her heart. "This is only the beginning," she thought. "If I can do this in a simulation, what can I accomplish in real challenges?" And for the first time, Lyra Kane felt a thrill that went beyond personal achievement. She felt purpose. She felt potential. She felt the quiet power of Earthborn ingenuity, an unpredictable force in a universe that had never truly taken humans seriously. The hum of Nova Station Prime was interrupted by a sudden alert. Red lights flashed across the station and sirens blared, echoing down the corridors. Cadets rushed to the nearest observation decks, instructors barking commands, while Lyra Kane felt her heart tighten. She had trained for simulations, for evaluations, for controlled exercises. But this was real. An alien faction, previously believed to be dormant, had infiltrated the station. Small squads of intruders moved quickly, disabling security drones and cutting off communications. Panic rippled through the cadets and staff alike. Most had never faced a real threat. Many froze, unsure what to do. Lyra's mind raced. She knew instinctively that relying on standard protocols would not be enough. She had learned this from the evaluations and the combat simulation. Now the lessons would be tested under life-or-death conditions. The chief instructor's voice came over the intercom. "Cadets, follow the standard response procedures, contain the intruders, protect the station and civilians." Lyra glanced around. Many cadets were huddled in fear. Varric Trell, normally brash and confident, barked orders, but his commands were scattered and reactive. He had no plan. Lyra stepped forward. "Follow me," she said, her voice calm but firm. The words caught the attention of a few cadets nearby. They looked at her uncertain, but sensing her confidence, they followed. The station's corridors twisted in confusing patterns, but Lyra moved quickly, analyzing the intruders' behavior. They were methodical, attacking weak points and avoiding direct confrontation. Most cadets would have chased them blindly, but Lyra noticed subtle patterns in their movement, small repetitions, predictable hesitations, and exploitable gaps. "Here," she said, pointing to a narrow junction where the intruders would be forced to converge. "We can trap them here, don't engage until I signal. We use their own strategy against them." Some cadets hesitated. "Are you sure?" one asked. Lyra nodded. "Trust me, we have the advantage if we act smart, not fast." The intruders advanced, unaware of the ambush. Lyra coordinated with her small group, positioning barriers and activating dormant security measures. When the first enemy stepped into the trap, the corridor doors sealed, and automated defense systems immobilized them. Lyra and the cadets moved swiftly, clearing the rest with careful precision rather than reckless force. Word of her strategy spread. Other cadets, inspired by her calm leadership, began following her guidance. Slowly, chaos transformed into order. Those who had panicked started to act strategically, following her example. Varric Trell watched from a distance, his jaw tight. "I should have thought of that," he muttered. He had relied on aggression and standard tactics, which were failing. Lyra, underestimated from the start, was turning the tide. Lyra didn't stop. She moved through the station, identifying weak points, rescuing trapped cadets, and setting traps for intruders. Each step was deliberate. Each decision was calculated. She was not just surviving the attack. She was leading, improvising, and protecting everyone around her. The intruders regrouped and launched a counterattack. They moved faster and tried to flank her team. Lyra anticipated their moves, using corridors and station architecture to channel them into confined spaces where they could be neutralized efficiently. She used energy barriers, environmental hazards, and even the intruders' own momentum against them. By now, the other cadets fully relied on her leadership. She was no longer a timid Earthborn girl. They followed her instinctively, trusting her judgment. The red warning on her identification badge, once a source of mockery, now seemed like a mark of authority and potential. Hours passed. The battle continued, intense and exhausting. Most cadets had never fought in a real crisis, but Lyra's guidance kept them coordinated. She noticed patterns in the intruders' strategies, predicting movements before they happened. She adapted constantly, improvising new tactics whenever the enemies tried something unexpected. During a brief lull, she took a moment to catch her breath and reassess. "We're doing well," she said to her team, "but they'll try something bigger. We need to anticipate their next move." She quickly scanned the station's schematics and noticed a central control hub that the intruders had avoided. If they reached it, they could disable the station's defenses completely. Lyra devised a plan. "We lure them toward the main hub," she explained. "Once they enter, we can isolate and neutralize them. We don't need to fight them head-on. We use the station itself as our weapon." Her team nodded, trusting her completely. The ambush was set. As the intruders approached the control hub, Lyra triggered a series of environmental manipulations, moving walls, shifting energy fields, and automated traps. The intruders, unprepared for such a coordinated defense, were caught in a controlled collapse. One by one, they were immobilized without casualties to the station's personnel. The battle was over. The intruders were contained, and the station was secure. Cadets and instructors alike looked around in disbelief. Lyra Kane, the Earthborn cadet who had been mocked at the gate, had not only survived a real threat, she had led, strategized, and protected everyone in the station. The chief instructor approached her, a rare smile on his face. "Cadet Kane," he said, "you have demonstrated extraordinary leadership, ingenuity, and courage. Today you showed that being underestimated is not a weakness. It can be a strength if you know how to use it." Lyra felt a wave of relief and pride. She had not only proven herself, but had shown others the value of thinking differently, of adapting and improvising when others relied solely on strength and protocol. Even Varric Trell, standing nearby, approached cautiously. I misjudged you," he admitted. "You're better than I thought." Lyra simply nodded, not gloating, but acknowledging the truth. Respect had replaced mockery. Fear had been replaced by admiration. She realized something important. Leadership was not about being the strongest or the fastest. It was about seeing what others overlooked, understanding patterns, and inspiring others to act. As the station returned to normal operations, Lyra walked through the corridors, the red warning on her badge still visible. But now it was no longer a mark of danger. It was a symbol of potential, of unpredictability, of a human who could make a difference in ways no one expected. That night, she looked out at the stars again, her thoughts turning to the future. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and threats, many of which no one could foresee. But she had learned something vital. Earthborn humans, underestimated as they were, had unique strengths that could turn the tide in ways others could not imagine. A quiet determination settled in her heart. If this was only the first real threat, then what comes next? She wondered. And will the galaxy be ready for Earthborn ingenuity when it cannot be contained or predicted? For Lyra Kane, the answer was simple. She would face whatever came next, not with fear, but with creativity, courage, and the quiet power of a human underestimated by everyone but herself. The aftermath of the attack on Nova Station Prime was quiet, almost surreal. Cadets and instructors moved through the corridors, checking equipment, repairing minor damage, and making sure the station was fully secure. The alarms had stopped, and the red lights returned to their normal soft glow. But the memory of the intruder's sudden assault lingered in everyone's minds. Lyra Kane walked slowly through the station, her boots echoing on the metal floor. She had been praised, her strategies studied and copied by other cadets, but she didn't feel triumphant. She felt focused, aware that the galaxy was full of challenges far greater than any she had yet faced. Still, for the first time, she understood the weight and value of respect, not given lightly but earned. As she reached the observation deck, she saw cadets she had fought alongside, some injured but safe. Many of them now looked at her with something she had rarely experienced: admiration. Even Varric Trell, normally brash and proud, approached cautiously. "I was wrong about you," he said, his voice quieter than usual. "You led us all. I didn't think an Earthborn could do what you just did." Lyra shook her head, a small smile forming. "It wasn't just me. Everyone who followed the plan helped. We all made this work." Varric hesitated, then nodded. "Still, you were the one everyone listened to. You saw what we couldn't." Lyra felt a quiet pride, but she didn't let it swell into arrogance. Leadership, she realized, was not about taking credit. It was about guiding others, giving them confidence to act, and making choices when no one else could. The chief instructor appeared on the observation deck, a tall figure with a calm, measured presence. "Cadet Kane," he said, voice resonant with authority, "your performance today has redefined what it means to be an Earthborn in the Interstellar Coalition. You have shown courage, ingenuity, and leadership beyond your years." Lyra nodded, humbled. "Thank you, sir." "I only did what I thought was necessary," the instructor smiled. "And that is precisely why you succeeded where others faltered. Many rely on advanced technology, strict protocols, or brute strength. You relied on your mind, your instincts, and your ability to adapt. That is the true power of your kind." Cadets who had once mocked her now approached, some shyly, others with clear respect. They asked questions about her tactics, wanting to learn, to understand how she had seen solutions that they had overlooked. Lyra patiently explained her methods, careful not to seem boastful, emphasizing observation, patience, and creative thinking. "This isn't just about combat," she told them. "It's about seeing what others don't, planning ahead and staying calm when things seem impossible. Anyone can fight hard, but thinking differently makes all the difference." The cadets listened, captivated. Even Varric Trell seemed to absorb her words, nodding as he considered her perspective. Lyra realized that being underestimated had given her an advantage. Her critics had not anticipated her abilities, which allowed her to act without interference or doubt from those who feared her potential. Later, the station's senior command held a formal debriefing in the council chamber. Holographic displays showed the intruder's movements, the cadets' actions, and the points at which Lyra had made critical decisions. Every cadet's role was recorded, but the analysis highlighted Lyra's leadership repeatedly. A senior officer spoke. "Cadet Kane has demonstrated exceptional skill and strategic insight. Her actions prevented significant damage and saved countless lives. She has proven that Earthborn humans, often underestimated, can be vital assets to the Coalition." Applause filled the chamber, and Lyra felt a mixture of pride and responsibility. She had achieved recognition, but she knew that respect came with expectations. The galaxy was unpredictable, full of challenges that would test every skill she had, and those she had yet to learn. That night, Lyra returned to her quarters. She stared out at the stars, distant and endless, thinking about her journey. From the gate where she had been mocked, to the evaluation wing, to the combat simulation, and finally the real threat, every step had been a lesson. Every challenge had been a chance to prove her worth. She thought of Earth, her home planet. Small, underestimated, and often ignored, yet full of humans with ingenuity and resilience. Perhaps the galaxy had overlooked them for too long. Perhaps it had failed to see the quiet power in persistence, creativity, and adaptability. Lyra felt proud to represent that potential. Sleep came fitfully. Her mind replayed the day's events, analyzing decisions, successes, and small mistakes. Even in rest, her mind sought solutions, improvements, and future strategies. Earthborn humans, she realized, were always observing, always learning, always adapting. And that was a strength the galaxy could not predict. The next morning, Lyra awoke to a quiet knock at her door. When she opened it, several cadets and instructors stood there holding personal comms and notes. They wanted her insight for upcoming missions, simulations, and training exercises. She smiled. Today, she would teach, guide, and inspire, just as she had acted yesterday. During the morning assembly, the chief instructor addressed the cadets. "Let this be a lesson to all of you," he said. "Underestimating someone because of origin, size, or reputation is a mistake. Cadet Kane has proven that courage, intelligence, and adaptability are what truly define capability." Lyra stepped forward, feeling the weight of their eyes. She had gone from being mocked at the gate to being recognized by cadets from across the galaxy. She spoke softly but firmly. "Being underestimated isn't a weakness," she said. "It can be an advantage. Don't be afraid to think differently, to take risks, and to trust your instincts. That is what makes you strong." Her words resonated through the hall. Cadets who had once laughed at her now looked thoughtful, inspired. Even the instructors nodded in approval. Varric Trell, standing at the back, clenched his fists but didn't argue. Instead, he gave a small nod of acknowledgement, a silent sign of respect. Lyra understood that respect was earned not through arrogance or boasting, but through action, integrity, and courage. By the end of the day, Lyra's role had shifted. She was no longer just a cadet. She had become a leader, an example, and a symbol of Earthborn potential. The red warning that had once been a source of fear and mockery was now a badge of distinction. Earthborn, do not engage, no longer warned others to stay away. It marked someone capable of extraordinary things. The final scene of the day found Lyra on the observation deck again, looking out at the stars beyond the station. The galaxy stretched endlessly before her, full of challenges, threats, and opportunities. She had proven herself in simulations, in evaluation tests, and in real danger. And she knew there was more to come. A quiet thought settled in her mind. They have underestimated us for too long. But now they will see. Earthborn humans are capable, resilient, and unpredictable. And that is a power the galaxy cannot ignore. Lyra Kane smiled, not out of arrogance, but out of anticipation. She had started as a cadet mocked at the gate. She had faced evaluations, trials, and real threats. She had led, adapted, and inspired. Now she stood ready to continue her journey, not as someone underestimated, but as a force capable of changing the galaxy, one decision, one action, and one moment of courage at a time. The stars beyond the station twinkled, silent witnesses to her journey. Lyra knew that being Earthborn was no longer a limitation. It was a source of strength, ingenuity, and quiet power. And as she stepped back from the observation deck, she felt a surge of determination. The universe had underestimated humans. Lyra Kane would ensure it never happened again.